29th, 2025. And this is our final Board of Equalization hearings for Arlington County this year. 4 board members are present. Mr. Penaranda is not with us, and there are 5 cases on the agenda. Do we have Mr. Harmon with us? There we go. Okay, the first case is RPC 1603007A, and there was a signed agreement on that on the 27th, so that has been removed from the agenda. The second case is RPC 3601803A on 18th Street South. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board, and Netta, good morning. This is the Crystal House Apartments and the related site plan that has additional development density. Essentially, the assessment consists of 2 parts. There's that assessment on the existing apartment buildings. The second part is the additional density allowed by that existing site plan. So starting with the existing apartments, the county does recommend a reduction based on the appeal. So for that, I do thank the county for taking another look at the assessment. On their revision, I don't really have any issues with the county's recommended revision. I think it does capture the declining NOI at the property due to the transition to 75% committed affordable units. No issues with the county's recommended revision on the existing apartment buildings. The issue today is the assessment's valuation of the additional development density at the property. Our summary of facts begins on page 65 of the board memo. In total, the Crystal House site plan allows for development of 742 multifamily units that are spread across several buildings. These 742 units that are entitled by the site plan, they're legally required to be 75% committed affordable units, and that's a minimum. The written stated goals are that it exceeds that 75% minimum for committed affordable units. Now to start, there is a bit of housekeeping. So this owner actually had an option contract to Amazon actually had an option to take those additional site plan units, and Amazon acted on that. They gave the option to Arlington County. Arlington County then gave the site plan to a developer at the end of last year. So to that end, what happened was this property previously was 1 RPC. Then in October of 2024, the owner split it into 3 RPCs. And the reason for that is to allow the development density to have their own RPCs. And this is just a portion of the outstanding development density, the portion that Arlington County and APA had come to an agreement to take. So those 2 new RPCs are where some of that development density had gone. Again, it's to allow Washington Housing Conservancy, the owner of Crystal House, to essentially transfer those development rights to Arlington County to APA. So in October of 24, this property split from 1 RPC into 3. Then in November of 24, those two of those 3 new parcels were then transferred to Arlington County, to APA via Arlington County, which is who Arlington County had awarded the development rights to. So what this means is that as of the date of value, the correct RPC for Crystal House Apartments and the remaining density owned by Washington Housing Conservancy, a nonprofit, was RPC 36-018-022. That RPC consisted of the existing apartments and only 320 of the remaining multifamily units available to be developed. The other 422 units, those had been legally transferred as of November of last year to APA via Arlington County by that option agreement. So those units were not part of this owner's legal rights. So with that, looking at the DREA's revised assessment, we see that it's imputed 535 multifamily units on WHC's parcel 36018-022. What actually existed as of January 1 on WHC's parcel is 320 units. Those other 422 had been transferred to APA as of November of last year. So I'm requesting the board reallocate the extra units assessed on this parcel so that the appropriate owner is taxed on. This reallocation would move essentially 215 units off of WHC's parcel and reallocate them to the correct parcels that are owned by APA as of the first of the year. In total, those 215 units at the county's rate would be $16,770,000. And those would be moved onto APA's parcels ending in 020 and 021. Now, as to the county's assessment of this additional density, the county has assessed this as if a willing buyer would pay the county's market rate of $78,000 per unit for all of these units, despite the fact that they're legally restricted to being 75% committed affordable. So the assessment says these are all market rate units. Essentially, a buyer would pay our market rate for that. That's not the case. 75%, three-quarters of them are committed affordable. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to say 100% have to be committed affordable in order to get the committed affordable rate. There's really no basis in that logic. There's nothing in the market that says a property that's 99% committed affordable, but 1% market, a buyer would still value at 100% market. There's nothing, no data to support that. It's something that's just kind of assumed by the county with no support. We know that's not the case, that if this density went to market, a buyer would, at a minimum, do a blended rate, 75% committed affordable, 25% market rates. The assessments assumed 100% market rate units. A blended rate, by the way, at the county's rates, not even changing those, but at the county's rates of committed affordable 75% and market at 25% works out to $68,250 per unit. So at a minimum, the assessment should reflect the actual nature of this affordable housing initiative and the actual fair market value that a property that is three-quarters low income restricted would likely bring on the market. Now, that's based on the county's land rates. Again, no changes to that. And this property is a unique property. There aren't many other site plans that I'm aware of in the county that are 75% committed affordable. Most of the time you see their market, and maybe they had to put 5% of units as committed affordable in order to achieve some bonus density. But you don't see this where they're 75% committed affordable. We know that a buyer's not going to value them as 100% market rate units, as the county has done. Now, looking at the actual fair market value for this site plan, we can look at the transfers of the subject site plan. So in 2020, there was actually a market value of $40 million for all of the units, which works out to $54,000 per unit. That, in 2020, Washington Housing Conservancy, the current owner, purchased the site plans. As part of that purchase, they entered into an option contract with Amazon for $40 million. Amazon, as of that sale date in 2020, had the rights to this development density via that option contract. So in 2020, a meeting of the minds, Amazon, WHC, came to a value of $54,000 per unit on this site plan. Since then, it's transferred twice, both times for $0. It first went from Amazon to Arlington County. They gave them the rights to that option contract. Arlington County then gave the site plan option to APA. APA has since acted on that, perfected a portion of that option contract, taken possession of some of the density. That was for $0 also. And in the board report prepared by Arlington County outlining this transfer to APA, the county does note that the county will likely need to subsidize the development just to make it pencil, just to get it off the ground. So the initial transfer of this density in 2020 was at $54,000 a unit. It's since transferred twice for $0 a unit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Shuttlesworth for the county, please.
Yes, good morning, board. Good morning, Jordan. So in prior years, and just like Mr. Harmon stated, this property was valued under one single parcel, 361814. It is now valued as an economic unit, and it involves three parcels. A parcel ending with 822 is part of this economic unit. The 825 already existing units were built in 1963, and their effective age is 2000. Site Plan 451, which was approved in December 2019, allows for additional 822 residential units, bringing the total unit count to 1,647. It also allows for additional retail space of 800 square feet. The county set aside 81 units to be committed affordable. These 81 units are valued separately via parcel 361819, and they're not part of this economic unit. They're valued separately. Essentially, the subject property is valued based on its 825 existing units and the additional density of 741 residential units. The restrictive covenants state that 75% of these existing units need to be converted to CAF units, and that has to happen no later than December 2026. As of January 1, 2025, 420 units were market rate and 405 units were committed affordable. With that being said, looking at the summary sheet and the overall financial performance of the property, the 2024 NOI declined by over 7%. As the property continues its transition throughout 2026, we projected almost 9% decline in potential rent. This is in column F2. As the board can see, we separated the market units and CAF units, and we applied the appropriate 2025 guidelines for each component. I believe we were generous on the OPEX. Our OPEX projections are slightly higher than the appellant's projections. I would like to emphasize that our projected NOI is below the NOI projected by the appellants. In respect to the retail components, since 2021, the retail INEs that were submitted to us included, they presented actual numbers. They have been showing consistent increases in NOI. The appellant did not provide the retail pro forma. We valued the retail at $13 per square foot, which is supported by the retail rent roll provided to us. The additional density of 741 residential units and 800 square feet of retail space were accounted for below the board can see the adjustment below the summary sheet. We used the 2025 land rates. The board has heard multiple cases involving site plans this year. Our department conducted a land study which involved 6 sales. These sales, just like I stated in prior cases, the median price per unit produced by this land study was $85,978, and we have applied the rate of $78,000 per unit. I'm sorry, and this is metro adjacent parcel. With all that, I'm open for questions.
Okay, thank you both. Questions from board members? Mr. Mendez.
Yeah, so maybe I'm understanding this wrong, but I'm hearing a disconnect from the appellant and the county. So the county stating that the existing units will be converted to committed affordable. Is that correct?
Yes, the 75% of those existing units are to be converted.
Okay,
Yes.
so the new ones that are coming online, I believe, how many is it there? 741 units. None of those are committed affordable. It's just the existing ones that are going to be converted.
No, the new ones are restricted as well.
Okay, so the new ones are restricted. 75% of them are restricted. Is that right?
Correct. The new and the existing, all of it's restricted to minimum 75% with goals to exceed that.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Other questions, Mr. Yates?
And I was so unclear. They're transitioning and they've got until, I didn't actually put that date down, the end of 26 to convert over.
Yes,
Is that
75%.
75%. So in 25, we don't know what that number really is yet.
Well, as of January 1, 2025, they've already converted 800. I'm sorry, they converted 405 units.
Or, okay.
And to clarify, that's for the existing buildings.
Not
The site plan does not have that deadline. It's just ongoing to my understanding.
Okay, all right, Mr. Hoffman, do you have a question?
Yeah, so I guess the allocation is really, you got to go to page 14 of the packet. That's the county's allocation, right? Between the 3 RPCs.
Mhm.
I guess, Jordan, do you have that? And can you like kind of walk us through the changes you're requesting to that again? Because I know you mentioned 16 million or 200 and some units moving from one to another. Just kind of lay out the changes that you're asking for.
Yeah, of course. So If I can share my screen and go
Yeah.
through the county's website. So here's one of the new parcels, 020. You can see in October of last year, the current owner, WHC, subdivided the one parcel, created this new one, October 31st of last year. Then on November 19th of last year, transferred it to APA, Arlington Partnership for Affordable Housing. Same is true of the parcel for the other parcel that APA has.
It should be
021.
20, 21, and 22, right? Are the three parcels? Yeah. there we
Correct.
go.
20 and 21 were transferred to APA in November of last year. 22 is the only parcel still owned by WHC. So getting this allocation accurate is important for WHC because right now they're being taxed on units that were transferred to APA. So I'll pull up the other one here. And show that it was also transferred November 19th of last year from WHC to APA.
Okay.
And the existing, so what's remaining on parcel 022, which is WHC's parcel, is get the number here, 320 units. 422 had been transferred to APA on those other two. The current owner only had 320 remaining.
Okay. Can we go to that allocation? I think you scrolled past it when
Yeah.
you were sharing screen.
So currently the assessment, what I did to get the numbers, that the number that's being allocated to 22, which is WHC's parcel, is I did this land value on 20 and 21 divided by 78,000 to see how many are being allocated to those two. And what you get, so it's the total land value on 20 and 21 divided by 78. So they're allocating 202 units to those two parcels instead of the 400 some that are actually on those parcels.
All right. So when you change that, you said there was like a 16 million or something difference that goes from the 022, and then I guess it would be spread between the other two parcels.
That's correct. It's 16,770,000.
Can we do that math? Can we like figure out where we're at?
So I don't know each of these on 20 and 21. I don't know what the allocation of units is exactly. I do know that 22 currently has an excess of 215 units. Now, how to allocate those between 20 and 21, I'm not certain. Maybe the county
How
has
would you
more
do it,
information.
Annetta?
So, to the best of my knowledge, the transfer deed has not been recorded. Jordan might correct me if I'm wrong.
The website shows it's recorded.
Okay, well, we can work out the allocation. There was similar case, I believe, last week when the issue was the allocation. We're more than happy to work with the appellant on that.
I mean, if we just confirm the total number here, maybe this is more a question for Mary, but I think we need to kind of all be working on this together because it's complicated. Like if we just confirm the total number, you guys can go behind closed doors and figure out the equitable allocation between the three parcels because we're really just concerned with the economic unit value, right?
Right. My concern is, I feel like we're all over the board. Like some have been transferred, some are mid-process. Ms. Shuttlesworth is saying it's not recorded yet. Mr. Harmon is saying it is recorded. It just seems like, WHC and APA work together on numerous projects. I mean, they're very well versed with each other. It seems to me that they should be able to figure out X number goes over here to APA and X number stay with the other one, WHC. And then they need to figure that. I don't see how we can go in there and arbitrarily say, oh, this many were transferred, so we're changing. I just don't think it's gonna be equitable. I see.
I'm
Mr.
with you on
Dwayne
that.
stopped in,
Yeah.
But do you have something to say there?
Yeah, I think with where we are on the transfers, my recommendation, from our side would be to leave them as is, and then we can speak to Jordan to clarify any kind of allocation going forward. But that's going to be difficult to figure out right now during the hearing.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I just don't see, we don't have enough information, verifiable information to be able to say X are going here and Y are going over here. And so, like I said, the partners work together all the time. And I mean, if these units have been actually transferred and the title's transferred, I cannot imagine that APA wouldn't come back and say, okay, this is our liability. We'll take these. These are, longtime partners in
Yeah.
affordable housing. So,
There's no issue over the dollar value.
right, it's just the allocation.
So I'm just worried that if they don't have it worked out, this is our last meeting.
Right, oh, no, I clearly understand that. Well, so.
Okay, that makes sense. Then put that aside, and now there's the valuation argument, right? And
Right.
so, Jordan, are you representing WHC? Okay, and so you're saying that there's that the existing apartment units that are now have an affordability covenant are overassessed, right? So like that's a separate argument from the allocation, right?
So I think Annetta did a good job on the revision for the existing apartments.
Okay.
So I'm not contesting that, it is going down. She did recommend a reduction from last year's NOI. So, no issue with the existing buildings. The issue is the future, the site plan, the additional density.
The
It's
78,000 per unit.
correct at the market
Okay.
rate. Yeah.
That's a separate argument. And then on that argument, I guess my question for you is, there's no appraisal. All this stuff, it boggles my mind that the county would go through a land development and disposition agreement and do all this work and not have an appraisal ever done. So was there ever an appraisal on these theoretical units?
So I wasn't able to find one in what I was searching. What I did find was essentially the county said, Amazon has offered us these units for free. We need to hop on it. We need to take this and then find a developer to put them up because we want this additional committed affordable infrastructure in the county. As part of that board report, they did say we're probably going to have to give the developer some subsidies in order to get the development to pencil. As far as an appraisal that the county commissioned on the value of that density, I didn't come across anything. I'm not sure if Drea has any information on that, but
Yeah, it's it's really hard when you create these public-private partnerships,
Right.
to try to unpack it at our level and put a value on something. Because this is literally like months and years of negotiations and back and forth. So it would be great if these deals got done, if you could also agree on the tax valuation for like a decade, so we didn't have to hear these cases.
That's a perfect world. Okay, any other final questions from board members? Okay, Ms. Shuttlesworth, if you take a minute to wrap up.
So it looks like the argument here is the land rate. As I mentioned before, and in my prior site plan cases, we did conduct the land study. The land study does support our land rate of $78,000 per unit. And in respect to reallocation, we always happy to work with the appellants, just like we stated last week during one of our cases. We will work the numbers out. As far as the land rate goes, we stand by $78,000 per unit. We believe this number is supported. And I asked the board to confirm our reduction in 2025 assessment to $317,934,700. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Harmon, if you take a minute to wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you. So with this site plan being 75% committed affordable, at a minimum, we request that the allocation, the county's rates of committed affordable and market rate be used. Just put 75% of the units at the county's committed affordable rate, 25% of the units at the county's market rate. That works out to 68,250 per unit. So a slight reduction, not much, but at least it more fully captures the uniqueness of this site plan. I understand the logic that if 5% of units are committed affordable, then, a market buyer's probably not going to change too much of their assumptions. So maybe it makes sense to use the market rate on all of those. But when 75% are committed affordable, it does make a difference. Final note, this property did trade in an option contract between Amazon and WHC in 2020 for 54,000 a unit. That is probably a generous number because Amazon was trying to place large amounts of affordable housing funds due to their agreement.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, it's just among the board. This is a tough one in trying to do the allocation work here. I don't, the study came back at 85.9 and the county's using 78.
Yeah, I kind of where Mr. Harmon is.
Pardon me?
I'm kind of where the appellant is. 75%.
And what are you going to use as value? I'm not comfortable doing that.
54.
The 54 from 2020. So we don't know enough about that. Why was that offered at that point? That's, 5 years ago.
The alternative is to leave it where it is and
see what transfers out this year. I mean, this is really as of January 1.
well,
I realize that we're sitting near the end of October, but
arguing that side, there's some of this carries into through 26, so.
Mr. Hoffman, did you?
Yeah, Mary, I mean, I'm comfortable just confirming this under the kind of burden of proof falls with the appellant. And there's a lot to be desired as far as laying out kind of the justification, the rationale, the logic, the numbers. This is such a complicated deal and there's so much history to it that it would be really heavy handed for us to try to like step in and figure this out. So I'm like, I kind of feel like I got to go with the county, but also hope that the county and the appellant, and I guess it's really two appellants, sort of, that's part of the complication, but that they can all kind of get together and come to an agreement that we can stand on going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, nobody's more sympathetic to the affordable housing developers because, we certainly need it. And, I'm always looking for a way to be able to try and help that. But I just think there's no way for us to be able to do it and equalize it.
Yeah, I mean, it's super messy just from the fact
Yeah.
that there's like, you go and you look up this site plan and there's talk about county financing and it's like what the county's going to put money into the deal. So again, it's like if the county's going to finance an entire project, I'll take it at, Greg Hoffman will take it at any value you want to give it, right? So it just gets really hard for us to try to be like a willing market participant would buy it at this dollar because really the development dollars are coming from the county here.
Where,
Yeah, I thought that was a great point at the end. And I agree, the county did a good job on the revision, so I'll vote to confirm it.
all right, then I'm going to move to confirm the revised assessment of $283,834,100. Do I have a second? A second by Mr. Mendez. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. The county's revised number of $283,834,100 has been confirmed.
Thank you. Thank you, board.
So that's
Thank you, Jordan.
Okay, Mr. Chikas, your final two cases of the year. Okay, RPC 2012106A at 525 North Thomas. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your 8 minutes and tell us about this property.
Yes, thank you. So this property is the remaining multifamily density that's at that Harris Teeter site plan in Ballston. So the total site plan consists of 732 multifamily units. We all know that the first phase has been completed. So it's 3 phases. The first phase has been completed. That's the new Ballston Harris Teeter with 310 units above the Harris Teeter. So that leaves 422 units remaining on the site plan. That's what the assessment for these 2 parcels is. Now, the first issue is another reallocation. We included this in the appeal. No response on the county's response. So the board, I asked to address this reallocation from RPC 200120009 to RPC 200123999. The reason is the RPC ending in 009, you can go on the county's GIS website. That's the public park parcel that was required as part of the community benefits to secure the approval of the site plan from the county. As such, parcel 009 has no independent value. It has no development density allowed on it. No purchaser would pay the assessed value of about 1.5 million for that public park parcel. Again, we put this in the appeal. It wasn't addressed on the county's review, but we asked the board just move the value on 009 to the other parcel, which is the actual remaining density parcel. Now, as to the actual rate, the assessment assumed a rate of 78,000 per unit. That's not actually supported by the market as of January 1, 2025. The county relies at this rate by relying primarily on outdated sales going back to 2020. And we've heard the board on just the last case say 2020 transfers are too old. We've heard the board rule on sale cases this year. There were 2. There was a sale case of a property that traded in May of 23, another sale case that traded in November of 23. The rationale the board adopted in both of those cases to affirm the assessment was that those sales, May of 23 and November of 23, were too old, too far removed from the date of value, January 1, 2025, to be reflective of the market value as of January 1, 2025. So we're requesting the board apply this uniform equalized methodology when considering whether a sale is reflective of market value as of January 1, 2025. We know from actual sales in 2023 that were argued this year, the board said no, too old, not reflective of market value January 1, 2025. Looking at the county's support for that 78,000 per unit, 5 of the 6 sales that they've relied on are from May of 23 or earlier, again, going back to 2020. No adjustments made to bring those up to the date of value. Just took the numbers from 2020 to 2023. We know that the board's ruled those are too old to be considered. So with that, the only current sale remaining on the county's list of sale comps that's within the acceptable sale range set by the board is the Ballston Macy's redevelopment. The county's analysis shows the site plan has approved density of 319 units, which at the sale price of October of last year of $20 million works out to a per unit sale price of $62.7 thousand per unit. However, on this property, you do need to adjust that because the county has separately assessed the retail portion of this subject site plan. That 62,700 per unit is inclusive of the multifamily and the retail at Ballston Macy's redevelopment. That's been applied to this rate plus additional retail. So correcting the Ballston Macy's to control for that retail, which the retail is 4.5 times larger than the subject property, but controlling for that at the county's rate of $60 per square foot of FAR, we see that October 2024 sale of the Ballston Macy's site plan was 54,200 per unit. So as such, we respectfully request the board reduce the assessment to reflect the actual sale comps that have occurred within the time frame that the board has repeatedly ruled is appropriate to consider sales that are reflective of fair market value as of January 1, 2025. As it stands, the assessment relies almost exclusively on sales that are 2023 or prior, going all the way back to 2020, when the market was clearly different than it existed on January 1, 2025, which has been adopted by the board. Any sales in 2023 are too old to be considered reflective of market as January 1, 2025. That leaves us with the Ballston Macy's sale, which again was at 54,200 per unit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chikas for the county, please.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, board members. Good morning, Mr. Harmon. Speaking again about the site plan, this one's a good bit easier than the last case we heard in that it's fully vetted and fully approved for density. And in fact, as Mr. Harmon noted, phase one, part one of the 3 phases has already been built out and successfully occupied. Um, in regards to the allocation, I don't think there's a real big objection in regards to how the value is allocated. I think the board noted that on the last case. If there's no objection to the total value, then how it's allocated isn't really an issue. One thing we would note, and in fact, we included it on page 13 of 61, is you can see the outlay. And again, this is by no means schematics per se, but you can see the outlay of buildings 2 and 3. And while there will be a public park dedicated, that one parcel is essentially a single family home that was needed for the density to be approved for redevelopment. So while there are plans for a future park, there are also assuredly plans for further consolidation and or re-subdivisions of the current parcels to accommodate that as these buildings come to fruition. So again, as far as the total value, we do feel that we've been fairly succinct as far as providing the sales that we do have in the county. Again, we're a small jurisdiction, 26 square miles. So as far as the number of sales we have is just that, it's the number of sales we have. When you take into account the number of sales of approved redevelopment plans, you're going to have even a smaller sample to choose from. So I hope the board understands by no means it's as if we're cherry picking what sales are available. We're showing you every sale that's available over the last 5 or 6 years. And I think that was partially done because there had been no land changes made for the previous 7 years or so. So as far as good faith effort, showing exactly what information the county has to work with, we've displayed that in our land study. Again, you can see that that does support a land value of $78,000 per unit for metro adjacent properties, as this one is. We would note that the IRBA was heard earlier this year, signed a covenant of agreement at approximately $448,000 per unit. Now, obviously, that's developed and occupied, but again, that stands for reason that the idea of $78,000 per unit for metro adjacent market rate high-rise, mid-rise apartments is viable and should be confirmed. That being said, the board has heard a number of site plans this year, and in equity with those properties, we do believe the county should be confirmed at the value of $33,526,600. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions from board members? No? Okay, Mr. Hoffman?
I'm assuming, and just for confirmation, but the public park delivery is a site plan condition.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so you can't build the units and not deliver the public park. You have to do both.
Correct. It's
All right.
it's that little sliver on page 13. It's that you can see it's in between the apartment buildings on the
Yeah,
I guess
it
bottom
like connects
left.
Thomas Street
Yeah,
and
it's
then up.
a walkway
yeah, okay.
now.
All right, cool.
All right, Mr. Chikas, if you take a minute then to wrap up.
Yes, ma'am. So just to reiterate again, it's not that we're trying to get out of be reflective of a public park that will be part of the site at one point. It's just a matter of, again, now it's common practice that with 2 parcels, both needed for the density for the approval, that we just split the value amongst those parcels. And then again, as more dedications come through and there's a consolidation and or re-subdivision, we're recognized at that time, but we do ask that the total value be confirmed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harmon, if you take a minute then to wrap up, please.
Yes, thank you. So page 14 of the memo is where the county sale comps are. You can see those sold 2020, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. That 2023 sale, the board actually rejected as being indicative of fair market value. So, the second most recent sale in the county sales comps was rejected as being indicative of fair market value due to being too far predating the data value. So, the only sale we're left with is that Macy's Ballston sale. That's one of the premier site plans in the county. It's on the better side of Glebe. It's right in the heart of Ballston. Still, the county's analysis, even without accounting for retail, the 45,000 square feet of retail at that property came out to 62,700 per unit. You can see the trend line also from the county sales. As we get closer to 2025, sales per unit, sale costs per unit are going down. That's what's happening in the market. We request the board adopt the most recent sale, which is consistent with the county's logic on those sale cases. Thank you.
Right, thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board. I know Mr. Harmon is, arguing over the one remaining sale, but I don't like pinning things on one item. I mean, it is coming down from 78. I mean, should it be closer to the 62? I don't know what the weighted average, would be more, but depending on what information they have this year, that may change for next year, but I'm not comfortable reducing that on the site plan. I don't know. Mr. Hoffman, where are you?
I agree with you. And I think with the comps, there's some complications too. I mean, there's obviously a premium for grocery anchored apartment land versus just a standalone building. So I think 78 is fair for this site. How do you guys feel about the reallocation?
I'm not comfortable reallocating.
Yeah.
I think the point is they're going to, as this thing develops, it's going to keep shifting.
They mentioned. Yeah.
Then it's gonna be an ongoing mess. And so I think you gotta just pick what they have as of January 1st. And I don't want to move anything around, especially do another RPC that's not even in here.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
everybody in agreement then? All right, then I will move to confirm the county at 33,526,600. Second,
I'll second.
Mr. Hoffman is a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Unanimous. The county is confirmed at 33,526,600. Okay, and the last case on the, the fourth case on the agenda is RPC 250120001, 925 South Glebe. Mr. Harmon, you can start with your 8 minutes on this property.
Yes, thank you. So this is the Westmont Apartments located at the intersection of George Mason and Glebe Road. It's a 250 unit apartment building that opened in July of 2023. So despite opening in July of 23, essentially 18 months prior to the date of value, this property has struggled to lease up and reach stabilization, which is indicated, as you can see on the 2024 INE, showing that physical vacancy as of January 1, 2025 was 7%. This 7% vacancy, keep in mind, is before, that's just physical vacancy. It's not including bad debt, not including concessions. Once we factor in bad debt, concessions, we see that for 2024, the property reported 27% in vacancy loss, bad debt, and concessions. Yet despite, aggressive lease up marketing and concessions, they're still having above market vacancy 18 months after opening at 7% vacant. The county's vacancy and collection loss rate is 5%, which typically, when you read the appraisal literature, a vacancy and collection loss rate will apply 1% for collection loss and the remainder to vacancy. So that 5% is reflective of 4% physical vacancy, 1% collection. Again, the property was 7% physically vacant as of the first of the year. It's remained about that level up to today. Now with that, I'll move to the issues on appeal. The county does recommend a reduction, which I do thank Drea for taking another look. However, a few issues remain troublesome on the county's review, which ultimately projects an NOI that is over 46% higher than what the property reported in 2024. We're, of course, reviewing a multifamily assessment, which means per Virginia Code Section 58.1-3295.1, we are required to consider the actual income and expenses, including concessions, rent loss, vacancy, at the property in order to ensure that renters are assessed on the same basis as homeowners. So starting at the top line potential revenue, this property offered 12% concessions in 2024. As of the date of value, the property was offering 1 month free rent. This has since increased throughout 2025 to 2 months free rent. So we know in 2024, they were offering 12% concessions on average. As of the date of value, they were still offering about 8.33% concessions, which has since increased to double that. So all this results in total potential income as of January 1 of $7.24 million. This is compared with the county's revision at $7.55 million. I did check again the property's website yesterday. They're again offering 2 months of free rent. They're still 6.4% vacant. They're struggling to lease up. You know, we're 2 years past, over 2 years past when they open. They still can't lease up. Next issue, the parking and miscellaneous income. We imputed what the property actually reported for 2024. The county revision projects increases of 5.4% and 27.5% for those items. We use the actual from 2024. If 2025 does increase by those speculative amounts that the county has assumed, the owner would be more than happy to be taxed on it for 2026. It is an annual assessment. Next, for vacancy and collection, we imputed 8%. That's reflective of this property, where it stood as of the date of value. The property, remember, was 7% physically vacant on January 1, 18 months after opening. To this, we added the 1% for collection loss. Again, as of today, the property is still 6.4% vacant and offering 2 months free rent. A neighboring property, the Jasper Columbia Pike, just a couple of blocks away, is offering only $1,000 off the first month's rent as a concession. So this property is clearly offering higher concessions, trying to reach stabilization. That's how we arrive at our stabilized potential NOI of $5,955,000. This is a 34% projected increase over what the property reported for 2024. Applying this projected NOI using the county's cap rate results in a final value of $100,623,000. That works out to $402,000 per unit. Now, $402,000 per unit, when you look at market sales, is supported. Market sales in the neighborhood, specifically the Jasper Columbia Pike, which sold mid-2023, right around the time this property was opening, sold at stabilization for $390,000 per unit. The Jasper is, again, about 2 blocks east of the subject property on Columbia Pike. Built in 2009, it was at a stabilized occupancy at the time of sale and has a comparable amount of retail space. Yet that sale price, again, on the Jasper was $390,000 per unit. The current assessment on the Jasper, again, stabilized, up and running, is $403,000 per unit. So applying our stabilized potential NOI to the county's cap rate results in that value, essentially. It is a newer property, but it's struggling to lease up. It's not stabilized. So it is, for all intents and purposes, comparable to the Jasper Columbia Pike. Our proposed NOI applied to the county's cap rate gets you to the assessment comp of that current assessment on the Jasper. So to summarize, this property opened July of 2023, 18 months prior to the date of value, yet it still hadn't been able to achieve stabilization as of the first of the year. It was still 7% physically vacant. It was still offering generous concessions. The county's revised value represents a 26% increase over the 2024 assessment because it assumes an NOI that is 46% higher than what the property reported in 2024. The revision is such an increase because it doesn't fully consider the difficulties this property is having leasing up. Again, it was 7% vacant, physically vacant as of the date of value. That's before concessions, before bad debts considered. It was having to offer, 1 month free rent. You just add that to the 7% physical vacancy. You see that it goes up to 15% plus vacancy and collections. The revision also projects significant increases in parking income and miscellaneous income. Our stabilized potential value at the county's cap rate represents a 15% increase over last year's assessment and arrives again at a value of $402,000 per unit, which is higher than what that sale of the neighboring property, the Jasper Columbia Pike, sold for at $390,000 per unit. The current assessment 2025 for the Jasper is at $403,000 a unit. So right at the same value of this property. Jasper's a little bit older, but Jasper's also stabilized. This property is not stabilized. It's a little bit newer, but it's also having to deal with those vacancy issues and offering much higher concessions than the Jasper. So as such, we respectfully request the board reduce the value to reflect what the property is actually capable of achieving as of the date of value. Now, if there's any questions about how we reached our stabilized potential or about how this property has faced issues leasing up in the market, please feel free to ask. I am available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chicas for the county, please.
Yes, ma'am. So we're relying primarily upon page 3, the summary sheet. Yeah, it's just really a different disagreement opinion as far as vacancy issues. We would term this as lease up. This is as a property that has just been testified to, went from 0% occupancy January 1, 2023 to 96%, I'm sorry, 94% occupied as of now. You saw a huge amount of lease up, reported vacancy of 79% in 2023. They ate to 63% of that in 1 year in 2024, and then went further down to 93%, 7% vacancy as of January 1, as testified by the owner's agent. So again, that's within 1 or 2% of stabilized market vacancy and concession marks metrics for the county. So we actually would say that this is a fairly well stabilized property within that first year and a half time. It's important to note columns E as well as our revision columns F1 and really the totals for F3. When we're looking at F1, please note that the apartment revenue as projected by the county is some $320,000 less than what was achieved last year while they were still in lease up. So even though they've since the 2024 INE leased up a further 9% of their property, there's a projection made by the county that's some $300,000 less of income that will be achieved at the property. The appellants actually project even further, some $600,000 less than what was achieved last year. So even though we all agree that this property is actually leasing up and is occupying year over year over year, increasing its occupancy year over year over year, there's a feeling that the operating apartment revenue will actually go down, which doesn't quite keep with reality. The reason we did that was to note that there is that difference in 4% guideline vacancy concessions and what was achieved at the property of 93%. So we squashed our potential rents to get to a effective gross that's more in line with the property and the way that the projections have moved forward as the property increases its occupancy. In regards to going down top to bottom, again, it's very typical that as the property increases its occupancy, there are going to be associated income revenues that are associated with that. So it is very likely, and again, it seems prudent to project a increase for parking of 5%. Other income projection increase of 4% and RUBS or utility reimbursements of 18%. And again, this is in keeping in line with the performance of the property. And again, from 70-some percent to 16% to just over 7% vacant as of January 1. You can see as the county projected in keeping with the idea of as occupancy and revenues grow, there will be some correlated response to operating expenses. We increased our operating expenses. And please note too, we included in the appeal packet, I believe it's on page 18 of 55, not one mention of retail, and that's primarily because the retail has been resoundingly successful. They've filled up, I believe it was 4 out of 5 tenants prior to January 1, including a CVS. So again, a well-situated retail aspect as far as the mixed-use component. You have the multifamily aspect component that's increasing its occupancy year over year. Please note, as we've talked about ad nauseum, there is again a correlation between concessions burning off as occupancy increases. So no owner is going to continue to pay off concessions as that property increases its occupancy. That's essentially what it's for. It's a stopgap. You can see, as has already been mentioned, that there was a fair amount, 9% of concessions paid in 2024, as was noted by the appellant. In talking about some of the conditions of the property post January 1, I think we can also point that CoStar suggests that concessions are down 6% already this year. So again, hand in hand, as the property fills up, concessions burn off. That being said, we do believe we've made our case for a revised value. And I would note as well that compared to last year's assessed value, we're projecting a 25% increase in value, which again goes hand in hand with the amount of absorption that's been at the property as compared to the owner's request for a 3.6% increase in value year over year. Again, just not keeping up with the reality at the site. So we do recommend that the board confirm our revised value of $109,665,000. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Both questions from board members? No? Okay, Mr. Chikas, any final comments in your minute?
No, ma'am.
Mr. Harmon, you have a minute to do any final wrap-up comments?
Yes, thank you. So the county testified that they relied on what they call the property actually reported as income last year. But what they failed to realize is that that top line income is gross potential. Gross potential is 100% occupied, not including concessions, not including vacancy. We know that's not the case at this property. It struggled to lease up. We heard the county testify 7% is stabilized occupancy, yet their revision has 5% as stabilized occupancy. 1% of which is collection loss. They're actually putting in 4% as stabilized. We heard the county rep testify 7% vacancy is stabilized. Why are they using 4% on their revision? Again, gross potential is not what the property earned as the county testified. When you actually take out vacancy and concessions, see what the property earned, it was 5.5 million versus the county's revision at 7.2 million. County is proposing a 29% increase. The county's revision, it comes out to 439,000 per unit, much greater than the assessment comp for Jasper Columbia Pike at 403,000 per unit. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, it's just among the board. I'll agree with Mr. Herman's last comment about looking at the rents. I mean, Mr. Chikas testified that the revised is using 8.1 million, 300,000 less than what was reported, but it isn't taking into consideration what they paid out, or not paid out, but, lost in vacancy and concessions. This has been a tough one to lease back up again, the closing of the Harris Teeter there. I think that made it struggle a little bit. I think it'll probably be a little bit more stabilized next year. I mean, what I did, I don't know if anybody's open to this. I took the F1 revised for the apartment and increased the vacancy to 6%. It's not a huge difference, but it brings it down to 106 million total. 600.
I could go along with that, but I looked at it with where they are in 24 and how they progressed to there, looking into 25, and that progression should continue, and things should, the discounted rent should come down a little bit. I was comfortable with what the county had, but I mean, while they're still leasing up, I could come down 3 million.
Mr. Hoffman, where are you?
I can go with you, Mary, just because we're looking back, 11 months now from the date evaluation. I think today the occupancy is probably up closer to 95%, and I think now, I'm down there in that neighborhood now, and it's the retail is fully leased up, right? And every single tenant is a credit, company. So like the 7.3 cap rate is probably high on the, for Verizon and Five Guys and those types of tenants. But I think that's all after the data valuation. So I'm okay with kind of that reduction that you proposed for this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly what you said. I mean, in less than or 2 months, I mean, it's gonna
go
probably
back up.
stabilize right back and go back. But for January, I think for what happened in the neighborhood and all the construction on Columbia Pike, I mean, it's really not been a good year for any leasing over there. So, all right, so everybody's all right with that then?
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to go ahead and move to reduce the assessment to 106,600,000 even. And that is based on increasing the vacancy to 6% from the 4% on the revised test.
I'll second.
Okay, so motion is second by Mr. Hoffman. All in favor? Aye, oppose, none. Then that assessment is reduced to 106,600,000, or I'm sorry. Yes, 600, 106,600,000. Based on increasing vacancy to 6%. Okay, and the last case on the agenda, which was put on yesterday, is RPC 16039,033 at 1601 North Kent Street. I'm not sure, Mr. Dubé, do you want to just start and resolve this? We don't really need to present.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
okay,
We it was brought to our attention that this parcel was not equalized with the rest of the parcels in the block, and we agreed to the number that Mr. Harmon had proposed, which was a total value of $11,573,400 for the parcel, and that's based off of equalizing the land rate with the other parcels in the same block.
okay. I assume, Mr. Harmon, you don't have anything additional to add to that?
Nothing additional, just thank you for taking another look.
Okay. All right, any questions from board members? Can we move to? Okay, all right, then I will move to accept the county's corrected number, revised number, which is actually a reduction to 11,573,400 based on equalizing the land and other parcels in the block. Do I have a second? Mr. Yates is a second. All in favor? Aye, opposed or none. So that is reduced to 11,573,400. Thank you both. All right, that completes the agenda for the year. We have no other stragglers, correct, Mr. Dubé?
That is it.
Done everything. All right, well, good job. Thank you, everybody. Agents, assessors, Rosa, of course, you know, we couldn't do this work without her, but that's it. We will hopefully see everybody next year.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
We will
Yeah,
stay
thank you all.
adjourned
Appreciate it.
for the year at 10:02. Thank you.
All right. See you next year. I appreciate all your time and what you do for the county. I know, again, this isn't your all's primary line of work and it is not compensated enough. So, I really appreciate you all taking the time out of your days to do this and hear these cases impartially. So thank you.
Okay.